I'm Lisa Haisha. Welcome to the Legacy Interviews. Today my guest is Melanie Taylor. And many of you probably already know who she is. She's a big singer here in LA and all across the country. And I love getting her newsletters because she's performing all over the place and she's just such a bright light. And I met her a couple years ago on a Costa Rica volunteer mission program with Women of Global Change. She was taking a time out from her busy career to give back and help build a school in Costa Rica. And we became friends and don't get to see each other all the time, but she's always in my heart. And I thought, I'm doing a legacy series. How can I do this with 40 great people without including Melanie? So I reached out to her and she's here today. So you're going to learn a little bit more about her.
Thank you.
You're
so
welcome.
Glad to be here.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm so thrilled to be here. This is wonderful. And I love your work. And so it's like, I'm so honored to be here. Thank you.
No, thank you. So I just want to introduce you to everybody and your magic.
Thank
and
you.
Your philosophy on life. I love that you work so hard at your career, but you take time to give back and you're really in the now.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it's one of those things that obviously the bigger picture of why I feel like I do this in my career is to give back and be like a joy and a light to other people so that they, from like that Marianne Williamson quote, have permission to do the same. And I think that maybe sometimes people think that like, oh, well, I'll get to this certain point in my career and then I'll give back or then I'll do this. And it's like, what's the point? You're here now, you know? So go ahead and do everything that you can, I think, while you're doing your career. So that's what I try to do.
Yeah, it's the same with money. People say, if I make this much money, I'll start donating. It's like, it doesn't matter if you make $100, you could donate 50 cents
right.
or $1.
Exactly.
And it's exercising those muscles. It's not tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. It's always today.
Yeah.
And with love, when you give love or you donate, that's when your life really starts to unravel and work.
Yeah, and exactly. Like a lot of times the things that you, like opportunities that you would never think that you'd get from doing something where you're giving back, that's where they do come from because it's like you're really in your heart and not in your head and you're just doing it for like the bigger picture.
Yeah, and that's where we met. We both went there to do something, and then you pick up a couple of really close friends or people you connect with.
I know.
Maybe do joint ventures with or share your life.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, even Mozart said, "Love is the soul of genius."
Exactly.
And I so agree with that.
Exactly.
So tell me a little bit about your music, how you get inspired, and when it started, when you got the bug and said, "This is what I'm going to do," and how you made it happen.
Okay, so the first time I decided that this was like definitely what I was going to do, I was probably in the second grade or something. I was like 6 years old, and I just saw a music video of Michael Jackson's of like, and I think it introed with him, like with all the people and like all these screaming, like crying fans and stuff. But it wasn't even that. I guess that was like showing the impact that he had on people. And I think initially that was the first time I was like, that's what I want to do. Like I really want to be able to impact people's lives that powerfully. And then though, when I saw how he did that in terms of like how much he felt every like lyric and performance move that he did, it was like it was clearly coming from a different, like from a higher source, and he was so out of his head and just like really allowing like whatever this source is to like kind of just flow through him. And I had already been involved in like singing and acting by then, and so it just really, really spoke to me when I saw that. And so I just got into like every kind of choir, musical theater kind of thing I could do when I was little. And it kind of became like my second family because I was like an only child. And just started getting into acting like really young. My mom was great, drove me up to LA from San Diego like all the time when I was little. And I got like the first audition I ever went on was for this National Hot Pockets commercial, and I booked it, and it was like this great like green light, you know what I mean?
Were you?
I was 10.
10.
Yeah,
Wow.
so it was so just from there, I mean, I guess I just never stopped. It was always that I've always known that this is what I wanted to do, and then just kind of kept doing it throughout high school and college, and then now after that, and I feel like when you follow your heart, like opportunities just come. And so I just started like auditioning and stuff after college, and I got this really cool opportunity to work with some different producers that were like developing artists, and did my first music video like the day after I graduated. And then after that it just led to different opportunities with different producers, and I just kind of got, I think, a mix between lucky and hard work and my intention to like create really great songs. And then it's really just like the songs, the content, I think, that like led to all of the good success that I've had.
What are your songs about?
The first album that I did, and I guess really the second album that I'm about to release, it's about life and my life and just experiences that I've had, and I feel like things...
What's the theme of your first one?
The first one is, the album title is called All About Today.
Okay.
So it's like,
Nice.
I think about just more like living in the now and living your life to the fullest that it can be. And up until then, it was kind of like all of my experiences kind of like in college and through being in like my early 20s and like being in the world and stuff. And then this next album is much more, I think like more deeper meanings are intertwined with it. And I took more of a kind of like Alanis Morissette influence, because she's always been like a huge influence in my life as well for music. And so I'm playing with like some cool musical themes with that, and yeah.
Can you give us a taste of one of your new songs?
One of the new songs? Yeah. Okay, so this one's called Just Ain't Right.
Okay.
It's about like if you're in a relationship and everything, and it's kind of like about my last relationship. And I think a lot of people can relate to it. It's like when something's going fine, you know, but you kind of just know that there's something out there that's better.
Yes.
So like nothing's wrong, but it just ain't right. Okay, the chorus goes, when you're supposed to be my canopy, trying to shield me from the rain, but you're leaking. I know you'd agree, you're my everything. I'm supposed to be the one you're living for, so nothing's wrong, but it just ain't right.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Yes. So
Yeah.
when did you know you had the chops for singing?
I mean, I was asking my mom to play. I would call it La La, she told me, and I would like ask her to do that before I could even speak. It was like one of my first words. So I feel like it was always something that I was like supposed to do. And then when I did learn to speak, I would, like in the car whenever we were going somewhere, I would just start making up songs and like singing them out the window, and then like kind of writing them, and when
That's
I thought
what
they were
Ava does. Yeah.
really, oh my gosh, that's so cute.
Constantly making songs and singing them out the window.
Yeah, because like I didn't want to like show her yet, but then when I thought they were good enough, I would like show her.
I'm ready.
Yeah,
That's
like
so
perform
wonderful,
them.
yeah.
And then I guess I just always knew from what other people like feedback that I got, I always had a really big voice, and that kind of like got people's attention, and it was like this kind of like superpower that I could do. I was like, ooh, like and I like loved.
Special.
Yeah, I just loved people's reactions to it, and it made me feel so good.
Absolutely.
And then I just kept doing it.
So what is the work ethic one needs to sustain a career? Because a lot of people are talented. I know a lot of them that are talented that just have never made it. Now they're 50 or 55, and they were so gifted in their early 20s and in their teens and performed a lot, but they petered out for one reason or another.
Yeah.
What do you think it takes to sustain a career, to get a career, and then to sustain it, not just staying at a smaller level?
Yeah, well, it's definitely very, very hard. I think the first thing that has kept me going, first of all, is the like amazing support that I've had from my family. But it's like also not only that, but I guess it's more so the kind of like spiritual motivational things that like I just personally believe in that have kept me going too, and that kind of support. And it's not even necessarily from anybody. I guess it's like from things that I've read or that things that inspire me that I just keep in me. Yeah. And I guess what that is that like I just know that for me, I would, if I ever quit, I would always come back to it one day. And so I always think if I'm like feeling down or it's like not been a good day or if I've had some bad news, it's like, well, if I didn't if I did just quit right now, say for like a year, like would I come back to it? And the answer is always like yes. And it's like, so then why would I take that year? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so,
but how do you organize your week or your days? Are you really disciplined, militant, or are you loose? Or?
The only thing that I'm usually very disciplined is in the morning. I always like meditate and like kind of center myself, and then I ask myself like a question every morning, which is like, what are the highest priority things that I can do today for like my career? And usually like it always just like, I know the answer to at least like 7 things that I can do every day. And I try to keep things fairly organized in terms of like times that I do things, but it's always kind of different with like writing sessions or just sessions in the studio or whatever, and sometimes they can go until like 3 a.m. and then so you sleep later, you know what I mean? But I usually just kind of go wherever the work is that week. Mm-hmm. So it's different. And then of course when there's a show, I get really disciplined about like rehearsals and all that kind of stuff just to like get ready for the show, because to me that's like the most important thing.
Yeah, so when you're performing live at a big concert or House of Blues or anything like that, what kind of prep does that take? Do you have to do a lot of vocal exercises?
Oh, yeah. I definitely have practiced my voice every day. Mm-hmm. And I see a vocal teacher once a week. And that's like something that's interesting, because I used to actually think that I like didn't need to and stuff. Yeah. And my mom was like, you don't go to your voice teacher because you don't have a good voice. You go because you do have a good voice, you know, because you have to keep nurturing it.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and then I work with a guy that is also, he's like a artistic director, choreographer, and so when I have like a bigger show, I like always call him, and he like really works with me on just even like the simplest movements sometimes with performances, because those can make like the biggest difference in a room if you're like looking and watching a performer and they could just do like the simplest thing and it like makes the most impact on stage. So I like really practice it down to like the finest detail a lot of times, and then we just rehearse until we like can't even rehearse anymore, and then pick out like the outfits and of course promoting and all that kind of stuff, and then just getting ready for that night.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because I feel like, because that's like my calling card. That's like the one opportunity that I have to, if when people haven't seen me before, for them to like say, yes, I would come see a show again, and like sign up for her mailing list.
Of course.
Or like, oh, she's just like another singer, you know?
Yes.
You really have to like make that difference in the performance.
Yeah, so what do you do if you get laryngitis or something on the day of the show, or halfway through the concert, you're like, oh, my voice is leaving?
I've never fully had the experience where I couldn't sing at all, but this last year, actually, it once happened to me where my upper register was just gone. Like I couldn't even go up, and I think it's just because we had been doing a lot of shows consecutively, and I basically, my voice teacher just said you can't speak for like any unless when you're like practicing. And not really even then, but up until the show, just go on vocal rest completely. So I had to do that once then, and once actually before our tour last April, because I was starting to get kind of sick too. And I just like had to charades everything with people and like not speak at all. But actually, that was like the only thing that worked. Mm-hmm. And then if I couldn't sing something a little bit higher, then you just like kind of
so you
adjust it a little bit.
Don't make it work, but
of
you
course,
adjust.
Yeah.
So what's the best advice you've ever received?
Well, I just heard something yesterday actually that like really kind of inspired me about just making sure that there's like a clear delineation between like talent and management. And that actually like really hit me, because it's something that I even work on. I feel like when you're like starting your own business or your own thing, a lot of times you like have to even sometimes like just do it all. That's definitely like when I was starting out a lot doing, and even get into the habit sometimes of doing and thinking that like, oh, well, they can't do it as good as I can do. But then I realized when I do that I just don't take as much time to actually focus on the actual craft and content, which is what I am really good at.
Yes.
And so, and like letting my management go ahead and like handle the things.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So that was like a huge thing for me to just remember, but also when I do it, I always get really great results. So.
Oh, that's good.
You know?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And then just, I guess, also, I mean, I think the reason that a lot of people don't end up making it is because they just really don't put everything into it that they could have. And for lack of a better word, they just give up, you know? I think, like, at the end of the day, if you really want something bad enough, you just have to stay in it and keep putting your hat in the ring, and, like, eventually, like, you will get some success with it. But I think a lot of people just quit, like, 2 seconds before it's about to happen for them.
I think that's true. It's so hard sometimes to show up every day if you keep getting
Just
rejected. I advise people to write down all their rejections and say, okay, if I hit 100, then I'm about to make it.
Yeah.
If you can suffer that much, just write it down. I used to do that back in my early 20s. Yay, I got rejected again.
That means I'm closer.
One step closer.
Totally.
Because if you keep practicing your craft, still studying, you can't not make it. It's, I think a lot of people are afraid of responsibility. So they think they want it, then they're going, oh my God, it takes so much. And they don't want the responsibility that comes with it.
Yeah, exactly.
And if that's the case, quit and build a career in another arena.
Right.
You know, whether it's assisting someone else in production and whatever, an office job, whatever it is, because this kind of work, the entrepreneurial spirit, is a lot. You're really the producer, the writer, the director, the talent, the stylist. You know, you have to do everything. You're your own workout guru. You could get help, but there's 15 things that you've got to do well.
Exactly.
And stay on top of if you want a career that's really out there for the world to inspire.
Exactly. And just be willing to, like, communicate with everybody that's, like, on your team that, like, you know, has it go in that way.
So it does take clear communication skills too.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Like, even stuff that's come up with my band, you know, it's sometimes hard because we're now, like, a close group of friends. So sometimes it's hard to, like, tell some of them, like, hey, I heard this, that really wasn't, like, that needs to never happen again. You know what I mean? Like, on stage or something. And sometimes it's hard to, like, have those conversations, but, like, that's part of also what it takes.
Yes.
You know? So
you need to do that.
Definitely.
So what's one of your biggest setbacks you had, and then how did you overcome it?
I think something recently, actually, well, it wasn't that recent, but it was like a little bit ago, and it was basically like with like a label. And this was now like the second time now that like I was about to sign this like huge like contract and all this stuff, and like at the last minute, the things that like my lawyer and that she had discussed with me and talked about were just not willing, we were not able to communicate with what they wanted to do. And so it fell through, and it like actually really hurt my spirit a lot because I put all of this like hope and like trust into that working out, and then it doesn't. But like looking back at it, I feel like that was actually like the best thing that could have happened because it made us like look at the industry for a little bit more in a clearer light of how it really actually is and all the things you kind of need to do first in terms of like building your YouTube channel and just regular things that they would do. I'm like, oh, well, we can do that. You know what I mean? And there's so many outsourced marketing groups and stuff. It's not all in like one answer. And so I think that was really important to like look at and then also see that like I'm just as powerful as like the big group of people that I thought would be like my answer to everything.
Yes.
But you know, it's like such a cool like an empowering thing to see that like I'm just as powerful as like those like what I think I would put my power in somebody else. So
can you talk a little bit about that, about leadership? Because when you're doing something you really have to be a leader.
Yeah.
If you're not good at being in your power of telling people what you need and telling them in the correct way.
Yeah.
You know, I teach something in Soul Blazing called the imposters and
yeah.
the different aspects of you. You're a narcissist, your wounded inner child, you're a sex god, goddess, you're overthinker, and on and on. And then when you're yourself, you come from your authentic soul. Mm-hmm. But your imposters live on the stage of your brain,
right.
like making decisions for you if you're not aware of it. It's
right.
kind of like the pit bull. If they're trained, they're great animals. If they're not, they like destroy your life, bite other people, bite you. Mm-hmm. And I think to be an artist, you have to be in touch with your authentic soul more, where you just respond and you don't react. Because when your imposters come in, those are all your defense mechanisms. It pushes a button from childhood or something, and you're like, rawr. And that's when you break connections, you lose fans, you lose everything. Because I think it's even important to have a close relationship with your fans.
Oh,
your
yeah,
fan
definitely.
base. If you're just like, oh, I'm better than you, or getaway fans, you know, I know a lot of people said, oh, I love this person, not anymore after I met them.
Right, which is like the saddest thing to me. I think that's like something I like never want to be to somebody, even though I know that so many people have like just bad days sometimes.
Yes, but how do you stay in that power of being authentic, even if you're exhausted? And the last thing you want to do is shake hands or sign autographs. You're just like, no, I just need home. I'm sick. I've been working 3 days straight or whatever.
Well, I think definitely, you know, to some extent, like boundaries are important because I do have to like take care of myself first, or I can't be that person that like can give them like all of my energy. But I will say that in terms of like with leadership, one of the first things that I always try to do if there is some kind of setback or some kind of like thing that I don't want to do is, because, you know, like as we know, there's two sides to everything, and there's always a benefit to the like downside or the drawback or whatever. And so I like really always try to look for that, for the upside, and think like, okay, like where am I getting, like if I'm not getting this opportunity, like I must be getting a really great opportunity somewhere else, because I just believe that like the universe doesn't just give you one-sided, you know what I mean? There's always like both. So I always try to look at like, well, if I'm, you know, if I'm not getting what I want here, where am I getting what I want? And when I feel like I can find that balance and like be grateful for like the way that things are, then I can stay in that authenticity,
Yes.
And just come from my heart and say what I need, or, you know, or do what needs to be done.
So if you're around someone who intimidates you, you know, because when you're in your profession, sometimes you'll meet a bigger star or a producer.
Yeah.
And you still want to write your songs or do your work. What if someone says, no, I don't like that, let's move on to something else, or I have a good song for you, or let's change this up? How do you?
Well, it's funny because ever since I first started writing, even with like the producer that I was working with who's been like nominated for Grammys and all these things, I think just for me personally, I like feel so strongly about what the message is that I want to send, or like my contribution, that I just like, I don't know. It's like I like never had a stop on it. I just always kind of like, I couldn't really even like put a filter my own like what I thought on it, and so I would always kind of like jump in and say like, no, I don't like that, or like actually I thought it should be kind of like this or whatever, but never in a rude way.
Right, but you always had the confidence to say, I know who I am, I know what my message is. And
yeah, especially when it's like my project, because at the end of the day, I'm going to be the one that's singing it, and I think that always like was more of a reason for me to say something than not, because I'm the one that would have to be, you know, that's going to be singing it for the rest of my life, you know, in concerts or whatever, so it better be something that I love. But also with like the intimidation thing, that's actually something that like I love and like thrive on. Because first of all, I think that like no matter what, you need people that are like better than you to be able to grow and like push yourself. So I always like embrace the competition. And then secondly, like I always try to like look at what those qualities are that people like who I really admire have, and then just like look and kind of think like, okay, well, like where do I embody that in my life, and like where do I see those traits in them, like where do I see that in me? And that is always like really empowering, because usually if I like look around in my life, I can see where they do exist, you know? And then it kind of like brings me at a more like balanced perception to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about community and about connection, because when you're a star, or even if you're a solo performer, or if you have a band, it's still about networking, connecting to others. You can't win life alone. And a lot of young kids are, I'm going to do it by myself.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't get a team around them. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of having a team, of trusting others, and teaching people how to, a lot of people are shut down. You know, a lot of my clients, they're shut down. They're saying, I can't trust because I was burned once, or something happened, so they feel guarded. And you're someone that I met and is just so open. You're with the kids, you're just playing and talking, regardless of who you are, you know, who you were with on the retreat. If they were the biggest person or a small person, you were equally friendly. You weren't,
you.
discriminating of, oh, this person is a contact, so I'm going to be nicer. This person's kind of a nobody. So you're someone that I observed that knew how to connect and bond with such a variety of people. And in your work, you were just discussing your band. So how can you help others learn about the importance of that? Because you can't make it alone. It always takes others.
Yeah, well, for sure, like I was saying, like that delineation between talent and management, like the management side is so important.
But how do you, and how can you pick the right people? How do you?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
How do you, in circle of friends, because we all need friends. How do you, say, I'll let this one in my circle? And
like who's on my bus?
And trusting, and when you trust someone and they betray you, how do you handle that?
Well, I think that the people, first of all, that they hang around with is always like a very huge sign of the kind of person that they are. And then I always like, for more business type things, it's who they surround themselves with and who they've worked with. But it's also like, what's their track record been? You know what I mean? I always try to like do my research, and it definitely did my research with my management on who they were managing and what kinds of products and results they've had in the past. And I think that's like a really important thing. And then in terms of keeping that community strong and like staying in open and honest communication, I always try to be like as vulnerable as I can. And even if I'm not like feeling the greatest about like even my work or what's happening right now, it's like I try to like say that to them so that they can actually like know that there is a need from me for them to like, step up or brainstorm or do whatever. And then I always like feel a million times better that I just got it off my chest. And then usually like the next day it's so much better. So I try to do that a lot with my management, and then also with my band members. So you address things
right away when they happen. You
don't
let it sit inside you and eat away at you.
Yeah, definitely. And it's something that I had to learn, because when I was first starting out, I kept things in for a really long time.
And you didn't want to burn bridges?
And it was like torture for me. And then I finally like realized like, I just can't do this. Like I better just nip it in the bud if there's something that's going on. So yeah, I think that that's really important though. I mean, you definitely can't do it all on your own, and you have to have like even a team or just finding advice or mentors from different people that can like inspire you and keep you going, because I think it's always one of those things that it's like, if it's a dream worth doing, then it's not something that you can do alone. You have to have other people to get it, because it should be that big.
Yes, absolutely. So what about a sisterhood? Women?
Yeah, I mean, I have always been, I think, just naturally like closer in a sense to women too. And I was in a sorority and like try to stay connected with like a lot of women's groups, and am a part of the Alliance for Women in Media. I think that's so important, because women, from years past have had just like a harder time coming up in the world. And now I think it's almost a weirder, like it's a newer kind of thing, that because women have had to be so tough in business, it's almost like harder to just be a woman sometimes. And I think that's like really important to, as to why we need to like stay together. And it's so important to have girlfriends, because you can kind of get in this like masculine mode a lot. I definitely have.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. When you're trying to build a career, you're the boss.
Yeah. Yes. And I'm like around men a lot, just because my band members are men. And so it's like I have to have like good friends just to keep remind me that I'm a girl. Yeah, exactly. And be able to represent, both sides of myself, like when I'm performing too, because that's important to be able to relate to all audience genders. But yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a great thing that like women have become so like a big force in just any industry, I think now. And so, but it's like important, I think, to remember to just have fun too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you really balance that in your life.
Yeah, I really, really try to, and not get too like controlled by one or the other.
So when you go out with friends, you do something, are you always taking notes or listening to what people say? And
Yeah, no, it's funny that you say that, because actually that song that I sang, Just Ain't Right, was actually something that one of my girlfriends said about her relationship.
Okay, yeah.
And I heard it and I was like, that's a great song.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. And just, but also what's on the radio right now, what people are listening to, I get inspired by those things too. But yeah, I'm always like listening to little coin phrases or something.
Yeah, and I wanted to share with the audience that even if you're not working, taking vocal lessons on the stage or whatever it is you do, trying to really write, whatever you're doing in your life, because the balance, some people say, oh, I don't have time to do that because I've got to stay focused on the work.
Right.
But that is work too.
Yeah.
Because that's when the miracles happen. That's when you get ideas and inspiration. If you're just a machine, it's not going to be as good as if you
Exactly. I
the
think
time
it's
off.
so important to remember that, like, at the end of the day, we're all only like one person.
Yeah.
And, we're not meant, like you said, to be a machine. And so there's so many other aspects of life other than just work, but especially, for like what I do, if I didn't have the context of all of my life experiences, there would be nothing to write about,
Yes,
And
you have to go out there and experience to write or be an actor. Any talented musician, actor, or comedian or performer
totally
has to. Otherwise, they're a boring person, and it'll show them their art.
Oh yeah, exactly.
If you just sit there and try to write 8 hours every day, you're not inspired, so you probably throw away half the stuff anyway and say, oh, this doesn't work.
Oh, exactly.
So.
And like, it's, with any audience members, like I want to be as relatable as possible, even if that means that, sometimes things aren't going so well. But I think that even that is so powerful for people to hear, that like, oh, like they're on stage and they're just like saying it how it is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that sometimes makes people, I don't know, sometimes like afterwards people have said like, that was really great that you said that, or whatever. And so, yeah, totally.
So is there anything you haven't shared that you want to share about yourself and how people could reach you?
Yeah, well, they definitely can go on my website, MelanieTaylorOfficial.com. And then I guess I would say that like, I, of all people, like understand how hard it is to get started and to like want to be somewhere before like where I am now. I'm like a very impatient person, but I think that it's so important to, like you said, look around at like the other aspects of your life or like my life and look at like where I have been successful, because there's always like the balance of what that success can look like. You know what I mean? And even, especially, it was just my birthday on Monday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you. Unfortunately, it was also the day that that Robin Williams passed away. And it was a really important, it was like just a really important reminder for me that like his career, I mean, he's so talented and so just, his life is like just so incredible. And someone from the outside could look at him and say like, he has everything. Like why would he, why was he so depressed? And it's like, just goes to show that it really is about the quality of our life, I think, versus what achievements we've done. And it's so important to look at like the bigger picture and just check in from time to time and say like, am I happy right now? Like, do I really love what I'm doing? Like, is my life what I want it to be?
That's so important.
And
that's why I'm going to Barcelona. It's like, okay, I'm on this treadmill, I'm going, and I love what I'm doing every day, but let me take a step back. Am I enjoying it? Yeah. And say, what else is there?
Exactly.
Let me just breathe and then come back or start, keep doing what I'm doing over there, but still open the space of a new environment, a new home to live in.
Because life is such a gift. And
it's such a gift.
Such a big world out there, and it's like something that a lot of times, we just take for granted. And so I think it's so important to look at the bigger picture and just try to focus on like the quality of your life, not like the destination.
Exactly. So, enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
So one last question then. What do you want your legacy to be?
Oh, that's such a good question. I want my legacy to be one of, I think just to that people can like look back on my body of work and on my life and say like, she really brought so much joy to the world. I just want to know that I've like uplifted people's hearts and given people inspiration to know that they can do whatever they want to do if they put enough effort into it. And not even effort, but just if they believe in themselves the way that they always like should be able to.
And show up.
Yeah.
You can do it.
I want to be like that example of the fact that it's possible, and then also like the inspiration for people to know that it is possible.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
this is great. Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
love your nail polish.
They're like tribal.
Yes,
Thank you so much. Yes, it's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, thank you, and good luck on your journeys, and we'll be in touch.
Yes. Have so much fun in Barcelona.
I will. You got to come there. and
I
play in
will.
Barcelona.
I'm there. I'll have the sangria.
Yeah, okay. We'll talk about that. Thanks.
Thank you.